Hi, I'm Demi, founder and CEO of Year of the Book Press and editor-in-chief of Self Pub magazine. Here in the studio today with author Donna Ferguson for a little bit of a person behind the author series. Donna, tell us a little bit about life before you were a writer.
Oh, well, I went to college late in life, and I ended up being a teacher. I taught at LIU preschool. I also taught at Head Start, and I finally ended up in third grade teaching for Central York School District. And during that whole time, and even prior to that, I wanted to write. I wrote some things for the Fresh Air Fund that won a prize. I also had entered a writing about my grandmother, who was an immigrant from Germany. I entered that into a New York Times contest. And I actually was one of the winners of that, which was really exciting. And so teaching third grade language arts, writing and reading was something I really enjoyed doing. And that helped me expand my writing experience for myself personally. I also took part in some writing group activities, a critique group. And at that point, I discovered Year of the Book with Demi Stevens.
Oh. And then Donna came into my world.
And at that point, I had written, and I had the Rail Trail Kitten book critiqued, and I was ready to go on and see if I could get it published.
So what's the next step after you have the text of a children's book written?
Well, the next step is getting it formatted and putting it on, finding someone to publish it. And I tried the traditional way and received traditional rejection letters.
Do you have a box, a special box just for rejection letters?
I do. There were some nice ones in there, and there were some publishers that don't even respond at all.
I was just talking to someone earlier this morning about that sadness that's accompanied by no response.
So then I discovered Create Space, and I worked with them for about 3 months on my own, with some help from them to publish the Rail Trail Kitten book.
So how did you get the illustrations for in it?
Well, I had an illustrator that was working on the illustrations for the book, but when I received them from the person, they were very similar to a copyrighted picture book that I was familiar with.
Oh.
And so at that point, I decided that I would give it a try to illustrate it on my own. And I was encouraged by my son, who is an artist, and by my daughter, and by my husband.
Wow.
And so it was delightful. I really enjoyed doing it.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of learning to do your first illustration?
Well, I went to an arts craft store and just blindly picked out watercolor pencils and crayons and some paper and some gray pencils. And I just started illustrating in black and white. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I thought, well, maybe this is something I can do and continue with. So I made copies of those animals on my computer, and I colored in the copies in.
Oh, that's good. Then you only have to get the shape of them perfect.
Right. And so I didn't ruin my originals at that point, which made it a lot more relaxing to do.
Sure, there's a lot less panic and terror.
Right. So then I did backgrounds with the crayons, the watercolor crayons, and I did use a water wash on them. And I made about 6 to 8 backgrounds for the Rail Trail Kitten book.
So you're saying you put it together in layers?
I did. Then I layered my characters on top of the backgrounds and scanned them into the computer, and then they were sent to Create Space.
So you say that took about how long?
That took most of the fall of 2012 to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then the process, so once you had the images and the text and you started working with CreateSpace?
That took me a long time because I had to learn a lot of things about using the computer and formatting and sending things in zip drives to CreateSpace. That took me about 3 months.
Okay. Are there any recommendations you might have if someone was going to use CreateSpace services?
I would recommend that they have Demi Stevens put it all together for them.
Oh. No.
No?
If someone, well, you know.
Are we going to cut that out?
She's dear. I slipped her a 50 before we started. Because I think that there are viewers out there who love the DIY aspect of doing this. If someone was to work with CreateSpace, what would you suggest?
Well, at this point, they have changed what I did with them. I had hired them to help me, and I'm not sure if they're doing that anymore. I would contact them and see what support they can offer at this point for doing it yourself, unless you have the skills to do the formatting and to be able to send the information to them.
Okay. Yeah, I know they've eliminated the option where they'll illustrate it for you.
Right.
But maybe there's still some other avenues there. Okay. So do you feel that the illustrations got harder or easier as you moved from one book to the next?
Well, they changed a lot, I believe. But it was still enjoyable to do it, and I did learn better and more different techniques from the beginning to the end of doing them.
Yeah, I know that the colors in your third book are much more vibrant.
Right.
Yeah.
They are.
Was that easier to do with did you feel like you had a system in place then?
It was still kind of just give it a try. And look at it a little differently in the second book. Since the book was for a younger child, I wanted the illustrations to be simpler, and I did eliminate most of the background.
What did you use for background to get this beautiful gradient of the orange to the yellow to the green?
I used a paint program on the computer.
Beautiful. So there's lots of things that you can do, right, if you're familiar with some software to start building your own illustrations. I love the fearless nature.
I enjoyed it an awful lot.
So what's your family life like?
Well, I've been married to my husband for almost 52 years. He is the unofficial manager of my book business. He does all the paperwork for me. He gets the things ready for the sales tax and everything.
That's wonderful.
Right. I have an adult daughter, an adult son. I have an adult married granddaughter and 3 wonderful little great-grandchildren who are in my book, who are the joy of my life.
So now that you have 3 children's picture books, how do you reach out to the community to make people aware of those?
Well, I volunteer at the local libraries. I do story time there. My story times involve puppets, interaction activities with the children, and some songs, and of course reading the books. I also have a Microsoft slideshow that I show the children so that they can see the rail trail, the Heritage Rail Trail, and the real kitten named Smokey, and also the real cat and cows at the Perrydale Dairy Farm.
And you have a craft too, don't you?
I do have a craft that we do.
So it's a full-fledged story time. Anything that any public librarian friends I have out there, you want to hook up with Donna if you haven't hosted her yet.
I also have present story times for a modest fee at kindergarten classes and daycare classes.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this great information with us today. Would you have any challenges to our viewers out there, what they might do with the story idea they could have?
Well, just go for it. Fill your dream, complete your dream. Make sure that you take the time to complete the things that you really want to do.
Absolutely. Don't leave this one on a bucket list. Thank you so much.
Thank you.